Thank you for watching that video on tap for this week. Sorry I forgot to add this yesterday to our schedule. It will come across the line again. What are you doing? You want to get it? I'm going to get it. I'm going to get your ball. I'm going to get your ball. And how to learn to love people or put them away, just as acquaintances. Hate only hurts you, and you only, because you're the only one who has to think about it. Kill them with kindness. This is something I'm working on. How much life would it be easier if we didn't experience hate? Thursday, Pride Day, my story, part 6 of our podcast of Pride. Screen for what's on tap this week. Breaking news on sports and whatever. Something breaks on the show. I'll call it if it breaks. Len Dawson, who led the Kansas City Chiefs to a victory in Super Bowl III, was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Both player and broadcaster has died at the age of 87. According to his family and wife at his side. With much sadness that we inform you of the passing last year. Our beloved Len Dawson, the family stated, meant to KMBC Kansas City. Len Dawson was previously worked as a broadcaster. He was wonderful husband, father, brother, and friend. Len always was grateful and many times for
January day in New Orleans, the AFL champion Kansas City Chiefs were 13-point underdogs in their Super Bowl IV meeting with the NFL champs, the Minnesota Vikings. It was the conclusion to the 1969 pro football season, and the Chiefs completed it that day with a dominating 23-7 victory, led by the game's most valuable player, Len Dawson.
Go ahead, the mic, Lenny Dawson.
Lenny Dawson leads the field.
Way to go, Leonard! That's the way to go, Leonard. You done good, kid.
Lenny Dawson, listen to the crowd. One of the great underrated quarterbacks in the history of professional football. Lenny Dawson almost makes you cry. The stuff he's had to take, and the year he's had with a broken hand, a bad knee, fought a dime, but he did it today.
I can visualize it. When Hank took me out with a minute and a half or 2 minutes to go, whatever it was, in the ball game, we had it wrapped up, and it was just something like, a weight come off my shoulders, my whole body, because, geez, we finally did it. We talk about it every year, winning the biggest prize there is, and that's the Super Bowl, but we actually accomplished that thing.
The 34-year-old quarterback had reached the top of the football world, a spot that seemed improbable just 8 years earlier when his career was stymied due to inactivity. Len's climb to the pinnacle of his sport became one of the game's legendary tales. The Len Dawson story began in the small Ohio burg of Alliance, just east of Canton, the town considered the birthplace of professional football. Len excelled at Alliance High School, becoming a sought-after recruit by many college programs. It was Purdue where he connected with a young assistant coach named Hank Stram. Len was a 3-year starter for the Boilermakers and led the Big Ten Conference in passing his senior year. But unbeknown to Len, his plan to sell insurance after graduation would be altered after receiving a phone call from the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers had made him the 5th selection in the 1957 draft. Len was headed to the NFL. The Steelers' veteran coach duo of Buddy Parker and Bobby Lane left Len with little playing time in his first 3 seasons. Then in 1960, Len was traded to the Cleveland Browns, where he appeared in just 9 games over the next 2 seasons. After 5 years, his professional football career had ground to a halt. But in 1962, a casual encounter with an old friend would change the course of Len's life.
Hank Stram was the coach of the Dallas Texans, and he was at a coaches meeting in Pittsburgh where I was living at the time, and we had breakfast together, and he could see that I wasn't really happy with what was going on in my life professionally because I wasn't getting an opportunity to play. And he, at that time, says, listen, if you ever get a release from the National Football League, give me a call. It gave me an opportunity to compete for a job with the Dallas Texans.
It took time for Len to knock off the rust accumulated in 5 years on the NFL sidelines. But one observer was impressed, the Texans owner, Lamar Hunt. After watching his new passer in the preseason, Hunt personally made the only trade of his career, sending the Texans' previous starting quarterback, Cotton Davidson, to Oakland for the Raiders' first-round selection in the 1963 AFL Draft. And Hunt's faith in Dawson was rewarded.
The big rush is on, the kick is up, the kick is good! Dallas is the champion! Dallas wins it on a 24-yard field goal by Tommy Brooker.
The Texans were the 1962 AFL champions, and Len Dawson was named the league's most valuable player. But just months after the title game, Len and the Texans would move to Kansas City. There would be 3 AFL championships, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl victory, and 7 All-Star Pro Bowl appearances for Len, qualifications that would earn him a return to Ohio and enshrinement in Canton's Pro Football Hall of Fame, an honor he was informed of in 1987 while filming an episode of HBO's Inside the NFL. Len's second career broadcasting began even while he was the starting quarterback for the Chiefs. Len Dawson became a fixture on Kansas City television on the nightly news at 6 and 10 o'clock. After his retirement as a player in 1975, he would become a color commentator for NBC, and eventually 33 years as the color commentator for the Chiefs radio network. But it was a small cable TV upstart that would make his face and voice familiar to football fans in every corner of the country.
Welcome to the longest running show in the history of cable television.
HBO's Inside the NFL became one of the longest running programs in cable television history. It would change the way fans watched and consumed National Football League games. And as one of the 2 hosts for 24 seasons, his Emmy Award-winning work would lead to enshrinement in Canton once again, this time as a broadcaster. Len's storybook life was not easily written. He battled adversity both personally and professionally. But despite the difficulties, he would achieve nearly every accolade possible from his 2 industries. And through it all, he remained rooted in his adopted home of Kansas City.
That's the way to go, Leonard. You done good, kid.
Of the passing last year. Our beloved Len Dawson, the family stated, meant to KMBC Kansas City. Len Dawson was previously worked as a broadcaster. He was wonderful husband, father, brother, and friend. Len always was grateful and many times for overwhelmed by countless bonds that he made during this football broadcasting career. He loved Kansas City no matter where his travels took him. He waited to return home. Dawson, who was injured hope career Kansas City on August 12th, worked for the Kansas City Chiefs for nearly half a century. In 33 years of broadcast analysis, Chiefs chairman Clark Hunt said he was heartbroken about his death. Len Dawson syndrome embodied Kansas City people calling home. You would be hard pressed to find Len Dawson, Hunter said in a statement. I admire Len for his entire life, first as a Hall of Fame player and on the field. The transition to a broadcasting career. Throughout his remarkable career, Len Dawson made it a priority to give back to the community that he loved. The franchise has lost